Have you ever felt this? That feeling of banging your head against the same wall over and over and nothing moves? You try harder, work harder, push harder, and the wall stays there, solid, insurmountable, impossible. Now let me tell you something that's about to change everything. That wall? It doesn't exist. Not in the way you think. In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon called quantum tunneling. Subatomic particles pass through solid barriers every single day. Barriers that, according to classical physics, should block them completely. They don't climb the wall. They don't destroy it. They just appear on the other side. Without force, without struggle, through an invisible tunnel that was always there. What if I told you that you can do the same? That the obstacle between you and your goal, the money you don't have, the connections you're missing, the time that feels impossible, isn't a real wall. It's a probability field. And probability fields have tunnels. You're just trying to get through the locked door when there's an open passage 10 feet to the right. Today, I'm going to teach you how to find that tunnel. I'll show you why your barriers are false. How to identify the 3 signs that a quantum tunnel is available right now. And I'll give you a concrete practice, something you can do in the next 24 hours, that will prove to the quantum field that you're no longer stuck. Because here's the truth. You were never stuck. You were just looking in the wrong direction. And when you learn to see the tunnels that quantum physics proved exist, everything changes. Your barriers don't disappear. You simply walk through them. Imagine a subatomic particle, an electron, for example, racing toward a wall of energy. According to classical physics, this particle should bounce right off. It doesn't have enough strength to get through. But here's what science discovered. The electron didn't bounce. It appeared on the other side of the wall, without climbing it, without destroying it, without forcing its way through. It just passed through. This isn't science fiction. It's quantum tunneling. And it happens billions of times per second in the universe around you. In the cells of your body, in the light passing through your phone, in the sun burning nuclear energy millions of miles from here. Quantum physics has proven that at the subatomic level, particles don't follow the rules we learned in school. They don't need to overcome obstacles. They cross through them. And let me tell you why. In the quantum world, nothing is solid the way you think it is. A wall isn't a wall, it's a probability field. And a particle, when it's in a quantum state, isn't a fixed object. It's a wave of possibilities. When an electron encounters that energy barrier, part of its wave function continues on the other side. Mathematically, there's a probability, small but real, that the particle will appear beyond the barrier, even without the energy to cross it in the classical sense. And when that probability becomes reality, the particle collapses on the other side. There was no climb, no struggle. It found the invisible tunnel and passed through. Let that sink in for a second. Barriers that seem absolute aren't. At the most fundamental level of reality, the universe allows shortcuts, paths that defy linear logic, routes that the rational mind can't map because it's stuck in the rules of the macroscopic world. What if I told you your life works the same way? That wall between you and your goal, whether it's money, a relationship, a career, freedom, feels solid because you're trying to scale it with brute force. Trying to work harder, try harder, fight harder. But you're not a classical particle bound by Newtonian rules. You're a quantum being living in a field of possibilities, and that means your barriers aren't what they seem. When you look at that obstacle, I don't have money, I don't have connections, I don't have time, your logical brain sees a concrete wall. It says, impossible. It traces the linear path from A to B and concludes that you need X years, Y resources, Z qualifications to get there. But your reality, at its core, is quantum. It doesn't work in straight lines. It works in probabilities. And where there's probability, there's a tunnel. Science gave you this truth 100 years ago. Particles cross impossible barriers every single day. They don't ask, how do I overcome this? They ask, Where's the path that already exists? And when they find it, they cross. You're asking the wrong question. It's not, how do I overcome this obstacle? It's, where is the quantum tunnel that already exists for me? Because at the quantum level, in the field where your intentions, your frequency, your actions, and the universe meet, there are no solid walls. There are only probability fields waiting to collapse. And the greatest discovery you can make today is this. Your barriers are suggestions. They're not absolute facts. They're perceptions created by the linear logic you were taught to follow. But you don't have to follow those rules. Quantum particles don't, and neither do you. In the quantum world, walls are just suggestions. Your barriers aren't what they seem. And before I show you how to break through them, you need to understand something fundamental: why they're false. Because there are 3 types of obstacles your brain thinks are real, but they're just illusions created by the linear logic you've been taught to follow. You see the path blocked. From where you are to where you want to go, the route seems clear and impossible. I need 10 years of experience to get this position. I need $50,000 to start the business. I need to know the right people before anything can happen. And because you don't have these things right now, your brain concludes, blocked. But that's the problem. You're looking at a linear map in a non-linear universe. Your brain is trained to think in straight lines. A goes to B, B goes to C. If you don't have B, you can't get to C. But manifestation doesn't work like that. And your biggest opportunities? They never show up on the straight line you mapped out. They show up on paths C, D, E, routes your logical mind can't even see because it's obsessed with the blocked A-B path. A woman wants to open a wellness clinic. She calculates, needs $100,000, doesn't have the money, solid barrier, right? 6 months later, she's running the clinic, without the $100,000. She met a therapist at a coffee shop, casual conversation, who was leaving her office space. Space already equipped. The clinic opened with $5,000 and 3 partners who showed up through unexpected connections. Path C wasn't on the map, but it was there all along, waiting to be activated. That's the quantum tunnel. There are 3 types of barriers you think are real, but they're just illusions created by linear logic. The first is temporal. I need 10 years to achieve this. But time in the quantum field isn't linear. You've lived this. That month that felt like an entire year. That year that flew by in a week. That 30-second insight that changed everything, worth 10 years of therapy. Time collapses. One person spends 10 years climbing the corporate ladder. Another meets the CEO at a random event, has a 15-minute conversation, and gets hired into a senior position the following week. Same goal. 2 completely different paths. The time barrier only exists if you accept that the only path is A, B, C, D, E, all the way to Z, but the tunnel ignores the latter. The second barrier is conditional. I need X to have Y. Your brain loves prerequisites. First I need money, then I can invest. First I need experience, then I can get the job. And while you're waiting for X, Y never arrives. Because you've conditioned your reality to a sequence that isn't mandatory. How many people have started businesses without money, gotten jobs without qualifications, attracted opportunities without having earned them according to linear logic? They didn't follow the order. They found the tunnel. A guy wants to be a motivational speaker. Thinks, first I need credentials, then I need an audience, then I can charge for talks. But he starts speaking for free. Someone records it. Video goes viral. A company hires him. He jumped straight to Y without going through X. The conditional barrier only exists if you believe there's a fixed order. But synchronicities don't follow order. They create doors where there shouldn't be any doors. The third barrier is material. I don't have money. I don't have connections. I don't have resources. You can open your bank account and see 0. Look at your network and not see anyone influential. But resources don't show up before frequency. They show up because of frequency. You don't attract money because you have money. You attract it because you're on the same frequency as someone who already has it. The material barrier is real in the physical world, but irrelevant in the quantum field. Because in the field, you don't need the resource. You need the frequency that collapses the resource. Money that appears from unexpected sources. People who offer help without you asking. Opportunities that arise exactly when you need them. That's not luck. That's quantum tunneling activated. These three barriers, temporal, conditional, material, exist only as long as you're trying to force the linear path. But the shortest distance between 2 points isn't a straight line, it's a quantum tunnel. And while you're pushing against that locked door, the universe has already placed an open window 10 feet to the right. You just haven't seen it yet because you're obsessed with the door. Your barriers aren't walls, they're probability fields. And probability fields collapse when you change your frequency, let go of the obvious path, and start looking for the tunnel that already exists. You might be wondering, how do I find this tunnel? How do I identify the invisible path when my logical mind only sees obstacles? Because there's a way to consciously activate it. 3 clear signs that the tunnel is available, and 3 practical steps to start crossing through. The tunnel's always been there. But you didn't see it because you were looking in the wrong direction. Your logical mind is trained to scan the obvious path, the linear route, the plan that makes sense. And when that path is blocked, it concludes, no way out. But the quantum tunnel never shows up in the obvious place. It appears on the sides, at angles you weren't considering. In coincidences, your brain dismisses as irrelevant. And there are 3 clear signs that a quantum tunnel is available to you right now. 3 clues that the field is trying to show you the invisible way. The first sign is that synchronicities start emerging when you stop forcing. Pay attention to this. While you're pushing, planning, forcing against the locked door, nothing happens. Or worse, things fall apart. You try harder, work harder, insist more, and the resistance only grows. But the moment you let go, when you finally stop trying to force that particular path, something shifts. An unexpected email arrives. Someone mentions something casual that sparks an idea. An opportunity arises from a completely unrelated place. You weren't looking for it. You weren't specifically manifesting it, but it showed up. This isn't coincidence. It's the tunnel revealing itself. Because when you stop collapsing your attention into a single blocked path, the quantum field can reorganize the possibilities around you. And synchronicities are the language of the field saying, here, this is the way. The second sign is that solutions appear from completely unexpected angles. You're looking for the answer in A. The answer shows up in Q. You think you need an investor. But what appears is a partnership that eliminates the need for investment. You think you need a new job. But what comes up is a business idea you'd never considered. You think you need more time. But what appears is an opportunity that collapses time completely. Your logical mind will try to dismiss this. It'll say, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't part of the plan. But the quantum tunnel doesn't respect your plan. It respects your frequency, your intention, your energy. And often, the route the universe offers you is better, faster, more aligned than the one you were trying to force. If you're too rigid to recognize this, the tunnel closes, and you go back to pushing the locked door. The third sign is that you feel an intuitive pull towards something that doesn't make logical sense. This is critical, because quantum tunneling doesn't operate on logic, it operates on intuition. You feel the urge to send that message. Don't know why. Doesn't make sense. But something pulls you. You feel drawn to go to that event. Don't know anyone there. No rational reason. But something calls to you. You feel compelled to explore that idea. Seems random, disconnected from the main goal. But something nudges you. That's the field guiding you through the tunnel. And most people ignore these signs because they don't make linear sense. But remember, quantum tunneling never makes linear sense. If it did, you would have seen it by now, would have mapped it already. The fact that it doesn't make sense is the sign that it's the tunnel. When these three signs appear, synchronicities emerging, solutions from unexpected angles, intuitive pulls without logic, you know the tunnel is active. The question now is, how do you cross? Because recognizing the tunnel is one thing, entering it is another. And there are three practical steps that consciously activate tunneling, three actions that put you in the frequency of crossing through barriers instead of fighting them. The first step is to let go of the linear route, literally. Stop pushing the locked door. If you've been stuck on the same path for months and nothing's moving, that's your answer. The path is blocked. Not because you're not good enough, not because the universe is testing you, but because that's not the tunnel. And while you're wasting energy trying to break down this specific door, the tunnel that's already open is 10 feet to the left, untouched. Letting go isn't giving up on the goal. It's giving up the obsession with one specific path to get there. You want financial freedom, great. But are you willing to receive it in a way you didn't plan? Through an opportunity you didn't expect? Via a route your ego didn't choose? Because quantum tunneling will offer you exactly that. And if you're too rigid, you'll miss it. The second step is to enter a quantum state. And it's not complicated. Quantum state is simply mental openness to unmapped possibilities. Your logical mind operates on certainties. It wants to know exactly how things will happen. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. Predictable, controllable. But quantum tunneling isn't predictable, it's probabilistic. And you can only access it when you let go of the need to control how reality will rearrange itself. 5 minutes of silence a day does this. Not guided meditation, not forced visualization, just silence. Let your mind rest. Stop planning, calculating, trying to figure it out. And in that quiet space, the quantum field starts to whisper the invisible roots. You might not hear anything, might not have any mystical revelation, but you'll start to notice things that previously went unnoticed. That casual conversation that suddenly seems relevant. That email you almost deleted but something made you read. That idea that pops up out of nowhere while you're in the shower. That's the field at work. But it can only work when you create space, when you shift from force mode to allow mode. The third step is to follow the quantum clues. And this is where most people fail. They recognize the synchronicity, feel the intuitive pull, notice the strange opportunity, and they do nothing. Because it doesn't make sense. Because it wasn't in the plan. Because it's too small, too weird, too risky. But quantum clues always start small. That weird email you almost ignored? Respond. That casual conversation that mentioned something relevant? Investigate. That crazy idea that popped up out of nowhere? Explore it. Doesn't have to be a giant leap, has to be an action. Because the quantum tunnel expands when you act on it. Every small action based on synchronicity opens the tunnel wider. Every intuitive decision, even if it seems illogical, reveals more of the path. And suddenly you look back and realize, I crossed the barrier without even noticing. Wasn't dramatic, wasn't linear, but it happened. Because you stopped trying to overcome the obstacle and started walking through the tunnel that already existed. And that brings us to the most important point. Because recognizing the tunnel, entering quantum state, following the clues, all of this is essential. But there's a concrete practice, a physical action you can implement in the next 24 hours that will prove to the quantum field that you're no longer stuck, that you're already on the other side of the barrier. And when you do this, the tunnel is no longer theory. It becomes tangible reality. You don't need a massive transformation. You need one tiny action that proves something to the quantum field, that you're no longer stuck, that you're no longer waiting for permission, that you're already on the other side of the barrier. And when you do that, when you act as if the tunnel already exists, the universe responds. Not in weeks, not in months, in hours. This is called quantum microaction. And it's the most powerful tool you have to consciously activate tunneling. Most people think that to cross a giant barrier, You need a giant action, a dramatic change, a huge risk. But quantum physics doesn't work like that. Particles pass through barriers via probability, not force. An electron doesn't need to try hard to pass through the wall. It needs to exist in a state of possibility, and the tunnel appears. You work the same way. The barrier between you and your goal doesn't need demolition. It needs a quantum signal, an action that tells the field, I'm already there. I'm acting from the reality I want, not the one I have. And this can be done in 5 minutes. The first step is to identify the specific barrier, not vaguely, surgically. Grab pen and paper right now, seriously do it, and write down in a single sentence what the wall is between you and your goal. Don't write, I want to be rich. That's vague. Write, I need $50,000 to launch my business. Don't write, I want a relationship. That's abstract. Write, I feel like I'm not attractive enough to find an ideal partner. One sentence, clear, specific, honest, because you can't cross a barrier you haven't named. Now comes the most important question, the question that opens the tunnel. What's the smallest action someone on the other side of this barrier would take today? It's not what should I do to overcome this? It's what would someone who's already on the other side do? Because the person who's already crossed doesn't act from the barrier. They act from the reality beyond the barrier. If the barrier is I need $50,000 to launch my business, what would someone who already has a functioning business do today? They wouldn't sit around waiting for the money to show up. They'd register the company name, buy the domain, post about the launch on social media. These actions cost zero, but they send a massive quantum signal. I'm not waiting. I've already started. If the barrier is I don't have experience in the field I want to work in, what would someone who already works in that field do? They'd create a small project, post content about it, message someone in the industry with a smart question. Micro actions, but each one is you acting as if the barrier doesn't exist. The third step is to execute this action within the next 24 hours, not tomorrow, not next week, 24 hours. Because the longer you wait, the more your logical mind will convince you it doesn't make sense. But the quantum field doesn't judge size, it judges frequency. And the frequency of someone who acts immediately is completely different from the frequency of someone who plans indefinitely. Immediate action collapses possibility. Eternal planning maintains superposition. Pick one micro action right now and commit to executing it before tomorrow at this same time. Register the company name. Send that LinkedIn message. Create that profile. Write the first paragraph of the project. Small? Yes. But this small action is you proving to the universe that you're no longer in the blocked frequency. You're in the crossing through frequency. The fourth step is to observe the synchronicities that arise post-action. Quantum tunneling activates after you act, not before. You won't receive the full signal before you take the first step. The field responds to action, not passive intention. But the moment you take that micro-action, something happens. Within 24 to 72 hours, synchronicities begin. Someone mentions something related out of nowhere. An email arrives with an unexpected opportunity. An idea emerges that connects previously disconnected dots. A door opens that you didn't even know existed. This isn't coincidence. It's the tunnel expanding. Most people don't see these synchronicities because they don't act. They wait for the sign first. Wait to feel certain. But certainty comes after action in the quantum world, not before. So after you execute your micro-action, stay alert. Observe. Note the coincidences, because each one is the field showing you. Here, continue here. The fifth step is to repeat micro-actions daily for at least 7 days. One action doesn't open the tunnel completely. It just starts to open it. But consistent actions, small, daily, based on the frequency of I'm already on the other side, expand the tunnel until you're completely through. In 1 week, The business that needed $50,000 could be running with 300. The career that required years of experience could have a door open through one conversation. You didn't demolish the barrier. You walked through the tunnel by taking micro actions that proved to the field, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm already living this. And the field responds always. Let me give you a concrete example. Your barrier is, I don't have the connections to advance my career. The micro action isn't do massive networking. The micro action is send one message on LinkedIn to someone who's where you want to be. Not asking for a job, just saying, I admire your work in X. I'm exploring this field and would love to know, what was the defining moment in your journey? 3 minutes. And that's you crossing the I need to meet someone first barrier. You act as if the connection already exists, as if you already belong in that world. The person responds, you chat, they introduce you to someone, an opportunity arises. Within 2 weeks, you're interviewing for a position that wasn't even advertised. The tunnel was there. You just had to take the first step into it. Quantum microactions aren't about grandiosity, they're about signaling. Every small action is a signal to the quantum field. I've changed frequency. I'm no longer in the reality where this barrier defines me. I'm in the reality where I've already crossed. And the field responds by reorganizing possibilities around you. But this only works if you act, not tomorrow, today. Because the quantum tunnel doesn't wait for you to feel comfortable. It waits for you to take the first step. And when you do this, when you act as if the barrier is just a suggestion, not a fact, you discover something profound. You were never stuck. You were just operating from the wrong frequency. And now that you've changed frequency through action, the tunnel is no longer invisible. It's right in front of you, waiting for you to walk through completely. You now know how to cross. The question is, how do you live on this frequency permanently? Because tunneling isn't a one-time technique. It's a way of operating. A way of moving through the world when barriers appear, and they always do. The shift starts with a different question. When you hit an obstacle, your automatic mind asks, how do I overcome this? But that question traps you in linear logic. The new question is, where's the tunnel that already exists? This shift changes everything, because you stop fighting the barrier and start looking for the invisible route. And when you live like this, constantly scanning for tunnels instead of pushing doors, life reorganizes itself. Opportunities appear from strange places. The right people show up at the right time. Solutions you never would have planned reveal themselves. Not because you're manifesting better, but because you stopped collapsing your attention on the blocked path and made space for the field to show you alternative routes. Make this a daily habit. Every time something seems impossible, pause, breathe, and ask, what if the path isn't through this barrier but parallel to it? This question automatically activates tunneling mode. And in 2 to 4 weeks of consistent practice, daily microactions, following synchronicities, releasing linear routes, you'll look back and realize, I crossed 3 barriers I thought were insurmountable. No drama, no brute force, just following the tunnels that were always there. You weren't stuck. You were just looking in the wrong direction. And now that you know where to look, there's something even more powerful waiting for you to discover. Because if you can cross barriers quantumly, what else is possible? What if there's a version of you in a parallel timeline who's already crossed through all of this? Who's already living the reality you want? Can you merge with that version? That's the next layer. And we'll explore it in the next video on multiversal manifestation. So remember this. Your barriers aren't concrete walls. They're probability fields. And probability collapses when you change your action, when you stop forcing the blocked path and start searching for the tunnel that already exists. The tunnel's always been there. You were just pushing the locked door while the window next door was open. Now you know where to look. And for the next 24 hours you have a choice. Keep trying to overcome the barrier by force, Or take one micro-action that proves to the quantum field you're already on the other side. Because when you act like the tunnel exists, it appears. What barrier are you crossing next? Write it in the comments. Because naming the barrier is the first step to finding the tunnel. If this just shifted your perspective, hit like and subscribe. Because every week we're unlocking quantum physics secrets that transform reality. And since you've learned to break through barriers, there's something even deeper waiting. Crossing through is powerful. But what if you could direct your attention so precisely that reality rearranges itself around you? Not in weeks, but in days. At the quantum level, focus isn't concentration. It's measurable energy that collapses possibilities into matter. And if you're focusing wrong, and most people are, you're keeping your reality in permanent superposition. Nothing manifests because your attention is scattered. In the next video, you'll discover how your focus creates reality in a literal scientific quantum way, and why you're probably doing it completely wrong. Click now